Faye.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, it's Liz Truss 1, Slippery Starmer 0, as the new Prime Minister put in a direct and no-nonsense performance at their first showdown.
There's nothing new about a Tory Prime Minister who, when asked who pays, says it's you, the working people of Britain.
Well, there's nothing new about a Labour leader who is calling for more tax rises.
True. I'll explain why the Conservative Party should be encouraged by her assured PMQs debut and how she could be on a path to an unlikely general election victory. That's in my digest next. Then my superstar panel give their view. Tonight, I'm joined by former Daily Star editor and current columnist Dawn Neeson, businessman and activist Adam Brooks and the broadcaster Ashley James. Truss is just hours away from unveiling a potentially premiership-defining £150 billion energy bailout for households and businesses. But are her plans for a price cap on bills wrong? My political mastermind's ready to do battle on that, and an important clash. Top economist Sam Ashworth-Hayes, Boris Johnson and Theresa May's former special advisor Lila Howson-Smith, energy and analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs Andy Mayer, and social commentator James Malville. Want to hear from you on this too at 9:20. As unhinged race baiter Dr. Scholler brands Kemi and Suella gatekeepers of white supremacists, in what is the most diverse cabinet in history, are the left dishonestly stoking hatred and division to ensure Truss and Britain fail? And are social media commentators wrong to fat-shame Therese Coffey by saying she's too unhealthy to be health secretary? That's our big debate at 10:30. Then columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddle unveils his radical plan, including nationalising utilities and tax breaks for private health insurance that he believes Truss really must follow if she wants to save the country. He's also very unhappy, by the way, about why Kemi Badenoch doesn't have a bigger role in cabinet. So Rod Liddle uncancelled on all of that at 10:40. Elsewhere on the show, the Sussexes ego tour of Europe is continuing apace, and shock horror, it's all me, Meghan.
The truth was, I wasn't sure that I belonged. I was so nervous. And what can we do? What can I do?
Oh, and that counter just keeps on climbing, trust me. So has her narcissism finally be exposed for the world to see? Brendan O'Neill takes on the moaning Meg of Montecito and tonight's Outsider at 9:50. With a question of sport hemorrhaging 4 million viewers following Sue Barker's sacking, and Saki lefty comedian Joe Lycett making a mockery of the BBC's impartiality. Our woke slayer-in-chief, Jim Davidson, skewers the ageist and biased British bashing corporation at 9:35. And do the vindictive high priests of cancel culture, like trans extremists, now resemble the Salem witch hunters of the 17th century? Comedian and member of our GBNews family, Andrew Doyle, is live to take aim at the all-consuming lunacy of identity politics in his new book, The New Puritans. Isn't it time we hauled revolting eco-terrorists like this vegan mob off the streets of lawless Britain and just banged them up behind bars? Plus, will Florida Governor Red Ron's powerful political ad that celebrates his sane People First pandemic response win big with voters?
Hey, we deliver for the people of Florida yet again.
You saved our jobs.
And kept us going.
Much more on DeSantis coming up later in the Media Buzz. You'll get tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the press too. And I'll crown my greatest Britain and Union jackass before the night is out. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though, and tonight I admit to feeling increasingly concerned about the deteriorating health of our 96-year-old Wonder Woman monarch. So in the past few hours, the Queen was forced to postpone her Privy Council meeting after being advised by doctors to rest at Balmoral. So I'm going to share with you what a Buckingham Palace spokesperson has said tonight. After a full day yesterday, Her Majesty has this afternoon accepted doctors' advice to rest. This means that the Privy Council meeting that had been due to take place this evening will be rearranged. God's strength, Your Majesty. Your country needs you, so rest up and keep looking after yourself. You are in all of our thoughts. My digest on why Liz Truss got the better of Keir Starmer today coming up, then my superstar panel weigh-in. Tonight, former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. But before all of that, Polly Middlehurst here with the news headlines at 9.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. The new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, says she'll announce a package of support to help people deal with rising energy prices tomorrow. During her first Prime Minister's questions today, she refused to introduce a windfall tax on energy companies, saying it would discourage UK investment. But the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, accused her of protecting company profits instead of helping families.
Is she really telling us that she's going to leave these vast excess profits on the table and make working people foot the bill for decades to come?
I, as Prime Minister, will take immediate action to help people with the cost of their energy bills, and I will be making an announcement to this House on that tomorrow.
Well, as you've been hearing, the Queen has postponed a meeting of the Privy Council after being advised by her doctors to rest. Buckingham Palace says the latest advice does not involve a hospital stay, and the meeting, which was supposed to take place this evening, will now be rescheduled. Her Majesty remains at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where she was pictured yesterday inviting Liz Truss to become Prime Minister. 10 animal rights protesters have been arrested after vandalising Parliament with white paint. The group, calling themselves Animal Rebellion, want Liz Truss to take action on dairy farming, which they say is worsening climate change. Some of the activists also glued themselves to the pavement outside the Palace of Westminster shortly before Prime Minister's questions. Royal Mail workers have voted to stage a further 48-hour strike at the end of this month. The walkout will follow other planned industrial action scheduled to take place tomorrow. 115,000 members of the Communication Workers Union plan to walk out over an offer of a 2% pay rise. The union warning there could be more action if the deadlock isn't broken. And the movie theatre chain Cineworld has filed for bankruptcy in the United States as they seek time to restructure. The company has filed for a Chapter 11 move, which involves Cineworld's US, UK and Jersey businesses. They hope to emerge from bankruptcy in the first quarter of next year, and shares are expected to continue trading on the London Stock Exchange. President Biden has hosted a ceremony unveiling portraits of former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. The paintings will be hung in the White House following a long-held tradition. Usually, a former president returns for the unveiling during his successor's tenure, but there was no ceremony held for the Obamas while President Trump was in office. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB Plus radio. You're with GB News. Back now to Dan Wootton tonight.
So she's not so stupid after all, right? In fact, it was a decisive victory for the new Prime Minister during her first parliamentary showdown with slippery Keir Starmer. You could actually see his front bench looking increasingly uneasy, sinking into their seats, in fact, after Liz Truss disarmed the Labour leader with straightforward and direct answers to his questions without any bluster. And she had a clear sense, actually, of an underlying ideology with that determined focus. Sure, there wasn't the theatrics and performance style of Boris Johnson, which could be so entertaining. But watch how Truss confirmed help for the public is coming in terms of the energy crisis, but a windfall tax is out of the question.
More borrowing than is needed. That's the true cost of her choice to protect oil and gas profits, isn't it?
The reality is that this country will not be able to tax its way to growth.
How on earth does she think that now is the right time to protect Shell's profits and give Amazon a tax break?
Because ultimately, we want investment right across our country. We want new jobs and new opportunities. And that is what I will deliver as Prime Minister.
There's nothing new about a Tory Prime Minister who, when asked who pays, says it's you, the working people of Britain.
Well, there's nothing new about a Labour leader who is calling for more tax rises. I will take immediate action to help people with their energy bills, but also secure our long-term energy supply. I will take immediate action to make sure we have lower taxes and we grow the economy. And that way, I will ensure we have a positive future for our country and we get Britain moving.
So look, I get it's very early days, but on the basis of that showdown, it's a case of Truss 1, Starmer 0. Serious times demand a serious leader, and I believe Conservative MPs, members and the wider electorate will be reassured by the first day of the Truss government. Of course, tomorrow provides the stiffest test as she prepares to unveil an all-encompassing energy bailout, likely costing over £100 billion, which goes against virtually every Tory principle in the book. Now, while I have deep misgivings about the lack of targeting of the likely package, I reluctantly accept this extraordinary energy crisis calls for an unprecedented intervention. The key thing for Truss to ensure is that the UK is never reliant on bad actors for our energy security ever again. If she does that and sets our country on a different path, the next general election could actually be winnable. Now, I hate discussing identity politics in any form, as you know. I mean, apparently today I'm meant to be deeply concerned at the lack of openly gay people in the cabinet. I can't work out why, but apparently I'm meant to feel that way. But it was still delightful to see Starmer squirm when former Prime Minister Theresa May made this brilliant intervention about Britain's third female Prime Minister, once again coming from the Conservative Party.
Can I ask my right honourable friend, why does she think it is that all three female Prime Ministers have been Conservative?
It is quite extraordinary, isn't it, that there doesn't seem to be the ability in the Labour Party to find a female leader, or indeed a leader who doesn't come from North London. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the issue is.
The left are now throwing out, by the way, the most revolting insults, knowing they are losing this particular culture war. So new Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng, new Foreign Secretary James Cleverly and new Home Secretary Suella Braverman, all ethnic minorities in the three most important cabinet jobs, by the way. Apparently, they are actually all backing white supremacism. Yep, really, and I'm going to tell you about it later in the show. The new Health Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister Theresa Coffey is being body-shamed and told she shouldn't be in the role, despite there being no misgivings about Ken Clarke in the post. They look pretty similar there, right? And of course, Liz Truss, well, she's just got to be thick, doesn't she? She's stupid. But here's the thing, she's smart. And tomorrow she has the chance to take control of the energy crisis and set her on a path to an unlikely general election victory. The odds could not be higher. To respond now, my superstar panel, former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Dawn Neeson, was a good first day for Liz Truss, wasn't it?
I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't have that high hope. She's not the best speaker in the world. Her personality doesn't come across when she's speaking, but I thought she was very direct. She lowered her tone. There was no edge of hysteria. I thought she was very calm. I was actually quietly impressed. However, I do have to say, I think the way she was speaking actually encouraged Keir Starmer to behave better as well. And I thought it was actually, for the first time in a long time, quite a good debate. There was clear blue water, quite literally, between the two parties again. Haven't seen that for a long while. And I actually smiled a lot when Theresa May made that jibe about the sisterhood and the 3 female PMs. And I noticed, just watching it again, that Angela Rayner also was giggling, especially about the North London thing. So I think it was a very successful day for her. I was quietly pleased for her. Must have been terribly nervous. I mean, she's not the best speaker in the world.
And I think you're right.
Good.
Maybe a good day for Angela Rayner too, because the chances of the Labour Party now looking for a female leader outside of the North London bubble increases.
The problem, Dan, that Labour have got with a woman leader is they're not quite sure what a woman actually is. So
Exactly.
all the time they're a bit confused. It's not going to happen, is it?
Such a good point. Adam Brooks, was it a Liz Truss victory in your books?
I think so. I think she was pretty assured. And I think, I said this in the green room, I think anyone around the world that has been looking at our politics and our Prime Minister's questions, it looked like a sort of football match. It was a schoolyard before. And I think today was a calming influence.
More like a bare-knuckled boxing fight, right?
I think people around the world would look at that and think she looked quite statesman-like and professional.
Yeah. And she answered the questions.
Yeah.
Boris, as much as I loved him and I loved his performance, he rarely answered the right
I think
questions
she did what she needed to do today. And, she was even paid a compliment by Emily Thornberry, who said, I think she did all right. Now, for Emily Thornberry to say that, that means that Labour do think she put on a good performance. So, look, I think it's a good first day. She said the right things, but now, the devil's in the detail. She's got to go through with what she's saying. And as a businessman, I need her to act.
I imagine Emily Thornberry's just desperately looking around number 10 Downing Street, though, trying to tear down any English flags. Remember, she hates us displaying any form of patriotism.
White van, man.
Yeah, indeed. Ashley James, even lefties are having to concede this was a clear Liz Truss victory today.
I personally wouldn't say it was a victory, but what I will say, and I'll echo what both of you have said, is I like the fact that we heard debate on both sides. I thought she did very well, I will say that. I did think that Keir did a very good job of showing the public
So,
that Liz
genuinely,
is on the
this is a
side
genuine
of the
question. You genuinely thought Starmer beat Truss today?
Yeah, I do, because I thought he really had a chance to shine, and he did a very good job of showing the public that Truss is on the side of the rich and powerful against the poor and oppressed. Talking about not having a windfall tax, I know we're going to talk about the energy crisis next. I also found her quite misleading, saying that it'll put off investors if they put the taxes up, comparing it to France, when France actually attracted more foreign investors than any other EU country for 3 years in a row. But I like the fact that you get to hear both sides, and that's what politics is about. So even though I disagree with you on the 1-0, I would say more of a 1-1. I liked it, and it makes me excited to see where things go. And I like the fact there's debate instead of just not answering questions and reciting of Shakespeare and buffoonery.
I think UK politics was the winner today.
Yeah,
because
I would agree.
A bit of credibility come back,
What I did find curious about Keir Starmer was, though, when he was talking, I could hear Rishi Sunak. That he was coming out with the same rhetoric that Rishi has used all the way against Liz. So it's exactly the same. So that's what I really liked, is for the first time I felt for a long time, we had two political parties again, not blurred edges between them.
Thank goodness it wasn't fishy Rishi Sunak at the dispatch box. That would have made me very depressed. On news of Adam Brooks, Ashley James. My superstar panel are here all night, but coming up, woke slayer in chief Jim Davidson gives his unfiltered take on another abysmal few days for the British bashing corporation. He's live in the studio at 9:35. But first in the clash, our Prime Minister Liz Truss's plans for a cap on energy bills that could cost up to £150 billion, just plain wrong. I've got a stellar lineup to debate that next, because what I would say is, in the rest of the media, there is a real political consensus. No one is disagreeing with this sort of socialist state intervention. So we're going to actually have the debate tonight with top economist Sam Ashworth-Hayes, Boris Johnson and Theresa May's former special advisor Lila Howson-Smith, energy analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs Andy Mayer, and social commentator James Melville. Of course, your view on this, very important to me. Email me tonight at dan@gbnews.uk. You can tweet me using the handle @GBNews. Our poll is running there too. Vote now. The results and the clash coming up in just 2 minutes' time.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It's time now for the clash. And Liz Truss is expected to announce a massive energy bailout tomorrow as she sets about helping struggling households and businesses cope with soaring energy prices. The new PM reportedly planning to freeze bills at £2,500 a year alongside the one-off £400 payment already announced, and it will be funded through government borrowing. Now, a political consensus has formed among Labour and the Tory party, as well as most commentators and journalists, that some form of bailout is needed. But with the cost of this plan expected to reach £150 billion, is this really the best solution, especially with the enormous pandemic bill we've already foolishly racked up? Well, top economist Sam Ashworth-Hayes slammed the idea, calling the Conservatives the Labour Party actually on a 5-year lag. In a column for The Spectator, he argued it's not practical. Nothing in the policy is actually going to make it easier to keep the lights on, and once implemented, a price cap will be incredibly hard to remove. Can you really see politicians deciding to triple prices next year? They're more likely to just go ahead with full nationalisation of the energy sector. But what do you think? With what you know, Is Liz Truss's energy price cap wrong? You can email me, Dan at gbnews.uk, tweet me your thoughts at GBNews. We've got our poll running there too. I'm very interested in the results now. But here to help you make up your mind, I am joined by Sam Ashworth-Hayes himself, along with social commentator James Melville, the Chief Operating Officer and Energy Analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Andy Mayer, and former Special Advisor to Boris Johnson and Theresa May, Lila Howson-Smith. So, Sam, I was so delighted to read your column, actually, because it always concerns me when a policy is being nodded through by the vast majority of the media, by every major political party. I feel, Sam, this is a bit like the furlough scheme or lockdowns. No one is actually scrutinising the details because of the fact we know something needs to be done. So explain, Sam, why you think this policy is wrong.
I mean, I don't just think it's wrong. I think it's almost the worst possible way you could do this. I think there's broad consensus that you need to give some support to households. There's broad consensus that you need to give some support to businesses. But there's also, if you ask basically any economist, they will tell you that this support needs to preserve price signals, because prices are what allow markets to match supply to demand and to give people incentives to reduce their use. If you cap prices below the actual market price, substantially below the actual market price, you're basically creating a situation where demand won't change significantly, and you're going to have to find other ways of sort of making those two match up. So it's an extremely inefficient way of doing it. And it's also vastly costly because you're basically throwing money at households with more money going to the wealthiest who use more already, rather than sort of giving more targeted support.
Lila Howson-Smith, I know that you are pro this plan, as are most people in your Conservative Party. But can you understand what Sam is saying, that actually there's a lot of us who probably could cut back on our electricity use over the winter while being perfectly safe, but actually the price cap might make us stop doing that. So it actually makes the prospect of blackouts more likely.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the political challenge that Truss faced immediately on coming to power is that she had to do something big and she had to do something quickly. And you see her pragmatism coming through here, and I think that's been an underplayed part of her political character and probably her premiership. She needs to do something. She needs to do it quickly, and it needs to look at this stage as universal or as inclusive as possible to see off the criticisms that what she's doing is not enough. What needs to come after this, and I hope to see this signalled in the statement tomorrow, is how do we, this is a temporary fix. Yeah. What comes next? How do you bring back those sort of price signals that you need to manage demand? And how do you think about better targeting this? I'm slightly concerned by reports that it's going to be in place for 18 months. I think that's far too long. But, if this is a policy that's a 6-month stopgap to help us get to a better solution, to think a bit more about energy market reform, clearly that's positive.
Lila, you're a former special advisor to Boris Johnson and Theresa May. You know what the 18 months is about. This is a plan to take Truss up to the next general election, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you can obviously see the political expediency here, but I think what I'm looking for, and particularly from Jacob Rees-Mogg as her new business secretary, is somebody who is a bit more pro-markets, who's going to push her to look for those market solutions. I think he needs to be leaning on her now to say, this is fine for now, but actually going into the next election, this plan is going to fall apart, not only because it's not sufficiently targeted, but also because of the cost to
Because
public
Andy May,
debt.
you're the perfect person to speak to about this. You're an energy analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs, and you have huge concern, don't you, about the long-term ramifications of this sort of intervention into the energy market?
Well, that's right. And what we're looking at here is not just an energy price cap. This is the start of the government, once again, a superficially conservative government, moving the Overton window to the left. This is Liz Truss, who's been branded as a radical free marketeer, exercising one of the largest examples of socialism in our country's history. And not just socialism, but the worst kind of industrial socialism, where we are moving across vast resources from future taxpayers to energy companies. It's not going to the households. It's going to be going to all those companies that have been being demonised for the last few years on the basis they make too much money. Well, now the government's underwriting that. It's saying it doesn't matter how efficient you are, how good you are at your jobs, we're going to underwrite your bills, and just so that we can keep the headline price down. And in that regard, for the future, it means that Labour will be able to say, well, what about subsidising food? What about subsidising transport? The long-term cost of this could be absolutely enormous, not just the policy itself.
Andy, can you understand why Liz Truss feels this is her only option? I mean, if you were advising her, what else would be politically palatable in this climate?
Well, I understand. I mean, the job of politicians is to get elected. The job of economists is to tell them why they shouldn't be. And in Liz's case, she's looking at this enormously difficult sales pitch saying, actually, we need to be straight with you. We need to come to an agreement that we're going to help people who need the money, people who are facing a choice between heating and eating, businesses who are looking at bills that will put them out of business, and we're going to help you. But if you're somebody who at the moment is looking at this possibly impacting your skiing holiday, or if you're Sam Laidlaw, the ex-CEO of Centrica, who was in the papers back in 2013 for having 2 swimming pools, we want you to turn those swimming pools off. We want you to save the energy. We don't want to be burning gas that we don't have enough of in order to pretend that we're richer than we are.
I mean, James Melville, I actually have a big issue with the fact that I might receive an energy subsidy, for example, tomorrow. I think someone like me can shoulder the burden. I would gladly accept the tax cuts, but I don't think I need a subsidy on my energy bill. You agree, James, with Starmer that the only way to fund this is through a windfall tax?
I think it's a number of measures that should be done in the short term. I think there's 2 aspects to this. There's protecting households through the winter and then also protecting businesses. And in particular, if you don't protect businesses, then you're going to have a bigger economic problem. There's going to be more job losses. It's going to cause a decrease in taxation and so on. So I think there is a need. It's partially political for Truss, but it's also just economic basic necessities to get through the winter. It does feel a bit like throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks, when we have been through a lot of that in the last 2 years, me and you, Dan, have talked about. But the second point is critical. We need a proper energy strategy, both in terms of pricing and supply. Not just this government, but successive government before that haven't had an energy supply strategy. And it's ludicrous, considering on this small island of ours, where we have numerous resources of energy sources, we don't have an energy supply. We need a national conversation about what the supply is, what the ownership is, less reliance on foreign ownership of energy, and then there's a discussion that has to come in about nuclear power, for instance, like the French, and also nationalising energy.
Though, I have the faith that Liz Truss does have that medium and long-term plan. The issue is now. And Sam Ashworth-Hayes, there was something that you wrote that actually terrified me after the past 2 years, because I actually think it's possible. You say, at this rate, it could only be potentially a few more weeks before some bright spark starts suggesting energy lockdowns to preserve electricity for our NHS. And that becomes more likely under this plan because actually we're still facing potential blackouts.
Yeah, so this plan, as currently sort of formulated, does a particularly wonderful thing where it subsidises demand for households. They're talking about sort of price possibly capping price for business as well, subsidising business demand. So you have the Treasury spending something in the region of 170 billion between the 2 schemes, subsidising demand on both sides. You're not actually able, unless you're going to make the rich governments the marginal buyer of energy in Europe sort of on an endless basis, there's not always going to be sufficient. So that makes blackouts more likely under this scheme than it would be under the alternative. And I was being slightly facetious, but it's also the sort of idea which you can see someone coming up with, sort of energy rationing as a way of doing it, rather than just letting prices do their work.
Absolutely you can. I mean, look at what's going on in Germany. And I guess that's the issue, Lila Housen-Smith. Yes, this is politically sensible, you could argue, at this moment in time. But what happens if in January or February we are genuinely facing a blackout situation? How does the government, how does Truss sell the idea of rationing to the public?
So I think there's 2 things that we're looking for here. The first is fundamentally energy market reform. So that's making sure that, the cost of generating electricity isn't set by the wholesale gas price as it now is. So we can have a kind of more representative energy market. And I think the second here is that she needs to set out a more robust energy security strategy than Boris Johnson managed to do.
Oh, yeah. But she will do that. I don't have any doubt that she will do that. I guess what the concern is, Lila, from a political point of view, is that at the start of the Tory leadership campaign, Truss was absolutely adamant that handouts and this sort of state intervention were not something that she was going to do. So how come so much has changed in just 6 weeks?
Well, I think what we've seen is her pivot from campaign mode, from appealing just to Conservative members, to her appealing to the voting public. And I think she's somewhat boxed in here by the fact that industry has been making suggestions around freezing prices for however long.
Starmer, of course, too.
Yeah, and Starmer as well. And actually, she knows to get through the next few weeks in terms of retaining that public support and making sure she's able to build on that and giving her a sort of firm political authority to then make the sort of tougher decisions or come forward with the priorities that she outlined in the leadership campaign. She needs to get this right now. Maybe that means also kind of coming back to it in the future, looking again at energy security and energy supply. But she needs to get past these first early weeks. And actually, unless she announces a really big, significant package that looks like it's going to work for most people, she's just not going to get the space to do that. And I think that's what she's looking to do.
So, Andy Mayer, look, if she called you in and said, look, I want to know what the Institute of Economic Affairs thinks I should do, what would you propose to Truss? Because something has to be done, doesn't it? Something has to be done to protect households who are facing bankruptcy and businesses who are facing closure this winter because of the energy prices.
So on the demand side, we'd say use what you've got. You've got existing welfare measures like universal credit and the warm home discount. Those could be substantially increased to get help to where it's needed. About
so increased benefits rather than cap energy prices.
Yeah, so that's on the welfare side. Tax cuts, cut income tax, cut employers' national insurance or employee national insurance. Do cut VAT off fuel bills. All of those things will get more money into people's pockets, and it's up to them then to decide whether they want to spend that on the much more expensive energy or indeed do other things. It would reward people who actually invested in energy insulation and other efficiency measures. For businesses, cut business rates. There are other things that could be done to help businesses who can pass on some of this, but not everybody can. And just generally, it's much more efficient to leave the high prices, but give people the means to be able to pay them, so that there's that pressure on energy to get demand down and to invest in new sources of supply.
So, James Melville, according to Andy Mayer, there is a way to do this without massive state intervention, without a windfall tax.
Yeah, no, I think it's a combination of things. I think there is a need for a windfall tax because I think basically what's happened in terms of pricing is out of control. But I agree with the last point as well. I've said this before. I said that there needs to be almost like a great reset, a terrible phrase, on taxation in the short term.
No, stop.
But there has to be, in terms of taxation, I think all the points are valid. I think there needs to be a cut in national insurance, and it's part of the reason that Sunak lost, because he was heading in the wrong direction to what the Tory base wanted on that. And I think there has to be aspects of to corporation tax to an extent. But in particular, there has to be a lot of aspects whereby individuals are feeling that the stealth taxes are moving in their direction, and in particular VAT, which I'm no fan of anyway. But if you put those taxation policies together, combined with aspects with helping out effectively a bailout package for business and also households, then that gets us through the next few months. But a caveat to that is I am concerned about putting that package together, what that means in terms of balance of payments and also the quantitative easing sums, because in terms of quantitative easing, 500 billion has been pumped into the economy in the last 2 years.
I think what this conversation proves is that whatever Truss announces tomorrow, there is no ideal plan. This is incredibly difficult for a brand new Prime Minister, and we have to hope that her proposal works. Of course, we'll bring you the full analysis of it on the show tomorrow night. But thank you so much to the social commentator James Melville, the economist Sam Ashworth-Hayes, Chief Operating Officer and Energy Analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Andy Mayer, and the former Special Advisor to Johnson and May, Lila Howson-Smith. So who do you agree with on this? Is Liz Truss's energy price cap wrong? Rosie writes, why should we pay to enrich the energy companies and the banks yet again? Of course, Truss is an ex-BP staffer. From Sean on Twitter, prices shouldn't just be capped, they should be reduced big time. And from Ethan, it's not wrong, but it has to be priced to make people think they need to reduce their energy use. Otherwise, the taxpayer is just funding private swimming pools, hot tubs, and people who leave the lights on in every room. And your verdict is now, and this is interesting actually, just 26% of you think that Liz Truss's energy price cap is wrong. 74% of you backing what the Prime Minister is set to unveil in Parliament tomorrow. Now, coming up, as the sycophantic Sussexes continue their European ego tour, has Meghan's narcissism been exposed for the world to see? Brendan O'Neill takes on Meg of Montecito in The Outsider at 9:50. But straight after the break, woke slayer in chief Jim Davidson skewers the British bashing corporation after another abysmal few days that began with lefty comedian Joe Lycett making a mockery of its impartiality. Jim live in the studio with me straight after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio, and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, and then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Time now for our woke slayer-in-chief, Jim Davidson. And look, it's been another tough few days for the British bashing corporation, or the BBC, as it's formerly known, after it was revealed that A Question of Sport lost over 4 million viewers after the BBC axed its legendary host Sue Barker for Paddy McGuinness. Now, Barker also revealed when the BBC got rid, in a harebrained attempt by the corporation's calamitous management to refresh the show, they asked her to lie about it before eventually begging her to come back. I mean, Jim, the BBC is literally losing 4 million viewers because of this tragic desperation to be woke.
I know, it is. It's ridiculous. I thought Sue Barker was quite good. And I think Paddy McGuinness, he ticks all the wokey boxes. He's quite nice. He doesn't have an opinion about anything. Now, you've got to remember, Dan, the BBC gave me £1 million to go away when I was doing the Generation Game and Big Break. They said, we don't want another series. We got a contract. Well, you can have £1 million and don't tell anyone.
So they did the same thing?
Yeah, same thing, yeah.
Why didn't they want you anymore?
Do you really have to ask that, Dan? No, because I think someone new turned up and went, what's he doing here? A Tory scumbag, get rid of him. Yeah, that was it.
But it is...
They didn't even have an excuse. They said, we don't like him anymore.
Well, it's fascinating how Sue Barker just lifted the lid
She was fantastic.
on the bizarre way that they actually
ask celebrities to lie to protect the BBC from criticism.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it?
And by the way, whoever made that decision should now be sacked, Jim, because literally
Long
that
as they
show...
don't tell anyone.
Indeed. Because that show, think about that, going from 4.5 million viewers to 800,000. I mean,
Well,
it's a disaster.
A Channel 5 programme about a shed in a back garden beat them. Beat them in the ratings. There's more people watching this now than there is watching that programme now. Poor old Paddy, he's a nice guy, but, you know, smell the coffee, get a new job.
No, indeed. Now, look, I want to move on to Joe Lycett, who, of course, insisted on derailing Laura Kuenssberg's interview with our Prime Minister on Sunday. And really, to me, this exposed the BBC's blatant bias. So just to remind you, Jim, here is some of those infuriating moments from that interview.
Thank you so much for coming in. And whatever happens, do come back. Well, I was going to say, going for some reaction from our panel.
The haters will say that you've had 12 years of the Tories and that we're sort of at the dregs of what they've got available and that Liz Truss is sort of like the backwash of the available MPs. I wouldn't say that because I'm incredibly right-wing.
I mean, Jim, number one, is that guy actually a comedian? Because I feel like the Trade Descriptions Act should come in here because, well, I didn't find it funny. Am I missing something? Am I missing
You're a hard man.
Do you know him?
I do. He told me off once.
What?
I was up in... I did some gig. I did the big room.
Yeah.
I did 2 halves in the big room, and there was a little gig downstairs. Same promoter. He said, look, we're selling no tickets downstairs. Will you do a gig downstairs as well? So I went downstairs, and Joe Lycett said, that joke you talked about a Chinese person using the CH word with a K and all that. He said, you shouldn't do that. You should say a Chinese person. And I said, well, it'll ruin the joke. It doesn't matter. You don't want to be known as the bad guy. So I went on and changed it to what he wanted, and no one laughed at it, apart from him, who clapped. So he actually gave me the finger and told me off. But the thing is with Joe...
So he's a woke guy.
He is, but you know what you're going to get with him. You know what you're going to get with me. People tune in to see you because they know basically what they're going to get. They don't know the actual words.
But this is the point, though, Jim.
But it's woke. It's not funny.
Well, no, but the thing is, the BBC, right, I would actually say, OK, that's fair enough, if they have you on this Sunday morning with Laura Kuenssberg, because then I'd say, OK, fair enough. You've had your woke lefty comedian on week 1, get Jim Davidson, the woke slayer, on week 2. But here's the thing, Jim, they won't do that. They only like backing the left wing.
No, because they might have to give me £1 million to go away again at the end of the gig.
I'm just imagining
rather than a slice of pizza and a cab.
But it wasn't funny, though, was it? Fundamentally, what he did, it just wasn't
He's not
funny.
a joke teller. You know, he's not shock horror. He's nice and off the wall and a bit... he's sort of... No, you're right, he's not funny.
Yeah, and I think, actually, it's not his fault, this. It's
no, he's a great guy.
Of the BBC, which has this ingrained desire to try and humiliate any slightly right-wing politician, because that's what this was about. They knew that Liz Truss was on. It was her first big interview at the BBC.
Yeah.
They had to find a way to bring her down.
Well, I mean, Laura Kuenssberg is... I don't get it. Click. There's certain things you can click. I've got... you know, when in the Cowboys, they can draw a gun like that. I'm the same with the television clicker. All I've got to hear is this. Da, 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 da. Click. That's me. Da, 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 da. Click. That's it. And it's Laura Click. That's me. I'm the clicker. Don't worry about that. Get rid of them.
Well, do you know what? I think after the debut at the weekend, a few more people are going to be going click on a Sunday morning. And hopefully coming over to GB News, by the way, because that's where you should be on a Sunday morning.
They should come over to GB News.
Now, Jim, I've got to ask you about the political drama of the day.
Yes.
What did you think of Liz Truss?
Well, her performance at the dispatch box? I thought she was like Thatcher.
Really?
Carol Thatcher.
Oh, Jim.
No, do you know what I can't get? What? I can't get the fact that politicians can't speak from the heart. They have to speak from the bit of paper, don't they? Yes. You know, you and I, we sit here, we're talking to the nation. We don't need notes and stuff. It's not as if we're reading the autocue.
No.
Reading the autocue. I think people should be able to speak from the heart, you know, without notes. What do you think, Dan? I think she was all right and calm, but we don't want all right. We want dynamic.
Well, but do we, though, Jim? Because I actually think there's something a little bit beautiful in the fact that what Liz Truss has done is she said, I'm not going to be about performance. I'm not going to be about theatrics. Now, look, I know you and me, we loved watching Boris and his speeches because they were great. He's
she
a
says
performer.
she's nice and wants to calm it down. She's the Joe Lycett of the politician.
I think she is saying, I'm actually going to be about being smart. I'm not going to try and perform. I'm not going to try and be the best person on stage. Look, at the moment, I think it's working for her.
There was a few overactors on that front bench. Did you see James Cleverly?
Yeah, what was he doing with his hand? What was that about?
He's a great guy, you know. That whole front bench now, I mean, talk about diverse.
Yeah.
It's incredible. They look as if they're ready to do a commercial on TV. I mean, they're just
They'll be being hired by Sainsbury's or Ben & Jerry's any day now.
Like a sofa, please. Yeah. No, James Cleverly is great. And Kwasi Kwarteng. I said on my TV show the other day, bet your bottom dollar he's the first one in the door and he'll get whatever job he wants because they get on really well and he's a really clever, charismatic bloke, as is James Cleverly. The other people I don't know, the Health Secretary, she's been picked on a bit. That's not fair. I actually think she is Ken Clarke. I haven't seen...
Ken Clarke's made a comeback.
You haven't seen Ken Clarke and her together, have you? It's like David Lammy oh no.
But it's unfair though, isn't it, Jim? Because come on, no one said a thing about Ken Clarke not being in fit enough shape to be Health Secretary.
It's sexist.
Yeah, and I don't like going down that whole identity politics path usually, but I actually feel like
good fun,
I want to defend Therese Coffey today.
Do you?
Well, I do, because I'm like, you know what? She likes a drink, she likes a cigar, she likes karaoke. Great, so do I. Well, apart from the cigars. I bet you like the cigars, Jim.
No, I don't. I once had a cigar in my mouth. I said, it makes me look like a film star. And someone said, yes, Lassie going to the toilet. So I stopped smoking.
Note, Jim Davidson, our woke slayer-in-chief, and Jim will be back next week. Thank you, Jim. But coming up in the media buzz, I hope so, the Prime Minister is set to announce an energy bailout for households and businesses amounting to £150 billion. But will the support be enough to keep the lights on and save on-the-brink businesses like our great British pubs? Our Superstar panel return to discuss that at 10. But next, Brendan O'Neill takes on Mimi Meghan as the Duke and Duchess of Woke's ego tour across Europe exposes their narcissism. Brendan is tonight's Outsider, coming up straight after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online. We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, the Duke and Duchess of Woke are unfortunately back on our shores as they continue their ego tour of Europe. The sycophantic Sussexes, who are on a relentless PR mission to promote Meghan's nauseating podcast, currently at Frogmore Cottage in Windsor before their next engagement in London tomorrow. Goody!
Yesterday, though, they were in Dusseldorf, Germany, promoting the Invictus Games 2023 and were seen on a walkabout outside the town hall, chatting and taking simpering selfies with onlookers, something they would struggle to do in Britain, given they're generally greeted by booing crowds these days. And I'm sorry, but for two people who claim to despise the trappings and traditions of the monarchy, all of this screams royal tour, with locals waving Union Jack flags and Meghan even presented with a posy. Now, the bizarre self-promotion junket kicked off on Monday when Meghan gave a speech on gender equality at the Young One World Conference in Manchester. But in classic Meghan fashion, actually, she didn't talk about gender equality at all. But I'll tell you what she did talk about: herself.
How on earth did I get here? I was the girl from Suits. Proof that I was there. And proof that I belonged. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure that I belonged. I was so nervous. And what can we do? What can I do to make it better?
My superstar panel back with me now: Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. Dawn, I really feel like this tour has exposed the true narcissism of Meghan Markle. Do you agree?
You were waiting for this tour? You didn't notice it before? You've mentioned it a couple of times before, Dan.
Sorry, I can't resist, Dawn.
Yeah, I mean, what that speech? 7 minutes. She infamously mentioned herself 54 times, and she was meant to be talking about gender equality. She was talking about Meghan, wasn't she? Look, you know, I don't really care about Meghan anymore. I really want to stop talking about her. What I do care about, and what I do think is incredibly sad, is that Harry is over here. He is literally 10 minutes walk away from his brother, and they haven't spoken or met. I find that incredibly sad. I mean, you know, I was lucky enough to interview Diana back in the day when the boys were, I think, 1 and 3. And Diana would say at the time she was so proud of her boys. She was so proud of how close William was, how protective he was of Harry. And I think now it's heartbreaking to see that relationship. Like, I know brothers don't get on, I get that. But I think to see that relationship break down...
I completely agree. I actually think she would be turning in her grave about the state of their relationship, because she always knew it was so important that they maintained a united front and that Harry was going to be there in order to protect William as he had to take on all of the responsibilities of one day becoming king. Adam Brooks, the issue to me is that the Queen tonight is ill. She is unable to even work. Harry and Meghan are making this all about themselves. I actually think if Harry had a shred of dignity, he would drop this event tomorrow, he would leave Frogmore Cottage and he would go to see the Queen at Balmoral.
But his wife won't let him. That's probably the fact.
Well, yeah, and also the wife has caused relations to break down so badly that actually the other members of the family don't want to see their madam.
Yeah, I mean, this is sad, as what Dawn said, to see a family sort of ripped apart like this in front of the world. It's quite upsetting, really. You know, I'm not a big fan of hers or his, but you know what strikes me is that these two left the UK apparently to get more privacy, and you know everything now is about them and getting more. You know, featured more around the world. It's so hypocritical.
They are invading their privacy now on a daily basis. Ashley James, look, I do this for work because I feel that I have to, but I put myself through the 49 minutes of trauma. I'm sounding like Meghan now, aren't I? This trauma of listening to her awful podcast today, Archetypes, with the American actress Mindy Kaling. And again, Ashley, she made it all about herself. She made it all about the fact that when she started to date Prince Harry, everyone said, oh, wow, you're dating a prince. And actually, they should have been saying to Prince Harry, oh, my goodness, you're so lucky to be dating the D-list actress from Suits, Meghan Markle. I mean, this is a woman who now shares her every innermost thought. So it is a joke, Ashley, that they plead privacy.
Look, her podcast is naturally going to be about her because it's her podcast and you talk about experiences. What I don't like, and by the way, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Meghan and Harry fan, but what I don't like is your kind of commentary, which says she won't let him, because I think there's a misogyny there.
That was Adam.
Yeah, I know.
That was Adam.
Of this evil woman who's, at the end of the day, Harry is an adult who makes his own decisions.
Do you not think she's been emasculated?
No, I don't think. I think it's great that she is a powerful, strong woman. What I think is bad is the fact that we say that it's because of her that Harry is making his decisions. He's grown, he's an adult, and he's also made it very clear his feelings of the media and the establishment for a long time, and I think he was looking for a way out. I think he should take the responsibility for what's happened to his family without us having to blame
Well,
Meghan.
I think he does take responsibility, Dawn, but I'm sorry, I covered this story up close. And to suggest that Meghan has not manipulated Harry, destroyed the relationships with his family, I think is wrong. I think actually what she's done, Dawn, is very sinister, and it's following the same playbook, by the way, from her own life, where she falls out with every single one of her close friends, where she falls out with every single blood relative, apart from her mum.
Well, I actually think it's 6 of one and half dozen of the other. I think, yes,
You blame them both.
The stronger personality of the relationship. I don't agree with this whole Yoko Ono thing where it's the woman that's always to the blame for a man being weak. Harry fought in our, in Afghanistan, didn't he? So, I mean, he is a soldier. He is a grown man. He should know his own mind. Now, for whatever reason, he is choosing his wife over his family, as it appears to me. But the wife must have something to do with that, Dawn, because you've got to remember, before Meghan came into his life, Harry probably had a closer relationship with Kate and his brother William than anyone in the world. Then all of a sudden, Meghan is in his world, and that relationship falls apart. Yeah, but he is a grown man, Dan, allegedly. I mean, if men ever grow up, he is a grown man. So I think he must be making this decision as well.
I'd say he's a Playboy prince with a chip on his shoulder.
But he was a big personality, and now he's not.
No, by the way, we saw what happened with Diana. She spoke openly about the fact that she felt rejected from the establishment. So you can understand why Harry would be particularly protective of his family, and I actually commend that. And also, as much as we talk about Meghan coming in and ruining his relationship, he also married somebody from overseas from a completely different way of life. So it's a two-way thing.
OK,
they're
but I'm
both
just
from
going to be
different
honest,
worlds.
Ashley. I'm going to be honest. I've got to put it out there. We're sick of them.
But then stop writing about them. Stop talking about them.
They are forcing themselves on us constantly.
You don't have to talk about it.
They're in our newspapers and on our news every night.
But they're not putting themselves in the news.
They would just stay away for a little while. We don't want you in Britain anymore, Harry and Meghan. I'm sorry, but it's true.
You know what, Dan? I would just. I want him here, but I want him to go and see his grandmother.
Yes.
She's very poorly.
Yeah.
And I think...
Do the decent thing, Harry. Get on a plane now, probably one of your private jets, which we know you love so much, and go and see the Queen if you have a scrap of decency left in you. Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks, Ashley James, stand by. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, the Truss train rolls on. We're just hours away from the new Prime Minister unveiling an energy bailout for households and businesses that could cost a whopping £150 billion. But will it be enough to keep the lights on and save on the brink firms like our great British pubs?
Well, open up more supply in the North Sea, build more nuclear power stations, which the Labour Party didn't do. We will get on with delivering the supply as well as helping people through the winter.
My superstar panel weigh in on the great energy debate next. Tonight, I'm joined by former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Remember the Salem witch trials, where innocent members of the public were hanged over false charges of witchcraft? Well, comedian Andrew Doyle says today's high priests of cancel culture are the new modern-day Inquisition. He's going to join me in the studio to discuss his brilliant new book, The New Puritans, at 10:15. Speaking of which, unhinged race baiter Dr. Scholler brands stars of the most diverse cabinet ever, Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman, the, quote, gatekeepers of white supremacists. So are the left now dishonestly stoking hatred and division to ensure Truss and Britain fails? I think so, but that's going to be our big debate in the media buzz. Plus, is this their most disgusting stunt yet? Peanut-brained animal rebellion thugs vandalise Big Ben with white paint in a vile display of criminality. I'll tell you exactly what should happen to these eco-terrorists shortly. And are you ready for Rod's revolution? I don't know if I am, but our columnist extraordinaire Rod Little has a bombshell plan for Liz Truss to galvanise the nation, including nationalising utility companies and, quote, taking a very large scalpel to the NHS. Do you agree? Well, you can make up your mind after he's uncancelled at 10:40. And is this the best political campaign video ever?
You led by facts, not fear.
And you let us decide.
You let me go to school. You gave me a voice.
Florida governor and one of the few politicians who dealt with COVID right, Ron DeSantis, proves he's fighting fit ahead of the US midterms. I'll show you that in its full glory very shortly. Plus, I will have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages throughout the hour, and a brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass will be named before the night is out, so do stay up with us. But before all of that, the news headlines at 10 with Polly Middlehurst.
Thanks very much, Dan. And the headlines tonight. The new Prime Minister Liz Truss says she'll announce a package of support to help people deal with rising energy prices tomorrow. During her first Prime Minister's questions today, she refused to introduce a windfall tax on energy companies, saying it would discourage UK investment. But the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, accused her of protecting company profits instead of helping families.
Is she really telling us that she's going to leave these vast excess profits on the table and make working people foot the bill for decades to come?
I, as Prime Minister, will take immediate action to help people with the cost of their energy bills, and I will be making an announcement to this House on that tomorrow.
The Queen has postponed a meeting of the Privy Council after being advised by her doctors to rest. Buckingham Palace says the latest advice does not involve a hospital stay, and the meeting, which was supposed to take place tonight, will be rescheduled. Her Majesty remains at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where she was pictured yesterday inviting Liz Truss to become Prime Minister. As you've been hearing in Dan's programme, 10 animal rights protesters have been arrested after vandalising Parliament with white paint today. The group, calling themselves Animal Rebellion, want Liz Truss to take action on dairy farming, which the group says is worsening climate change. Some of the activists also glued themselves to the pavement outside the Palace of Westminster shortly before Prime Minister's questions. Royal Mail workers have voted to stage a further 48-hour strike at the end of this month. The walkout follows other planned industrial action scheduled to take place tomorrow. 115,000 members of the Communication Workers Union plan to walk out over an offer of a 2% pay rise. The union warns there could be more action if the deadlock isn't broken. And movie theatre chain Cineworld has filed for bankruptcy in the United States as they seek time to restructure. The company has filed for a Chapter 11, which means it involves Cineworld's US, UK and Jersey businesses. They say they hope to emerge from bankruptcy in the first quarter of next year, and shares are expected to continue to be traded on the London Stock Exchange. President Biden has hosted a ceremony unveiling portraits of the former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. The paintings will be hung in the White House following a long-held tradition. Usually, a former president returns for the unveiling during his successor's tenure. But there was no ceremony held for the Obamas while President Trump was in office. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News. Now back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Time for tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz.
The first front pages are in, and the Daily Mirror, of course, it's taking credit for Liz Truss's energy bill freeze announcement, claiming she bowed to the paper's demands. Sharing the front page is a beaming picture of William, Kate and their kids on their first day at their new school in Berkshire. Well, they look great, don't they? George and Charlotte getting older, which I guess is inevitable. It's what happens, but it's cute to see. Tomorrow's Metro also adorably covers the Windsor children's first day in class. Obviously, they're going to school together now in Windsor. That's why they've made the move. Elsewhere, it reports on the tragic killing of a Canadian teenager who flew to Britain to meet her English boyfriend. The Independent claims Truss has been hit with a blow on her first day as PM as the pound crashed to a historic low, with sterling at its lowest against the dollar in 37 years. So I hope you don't have any trips planned. And actually, if you're planning on doing one of those little shopping trips to New York, you know, some people do that at Christmas time, perhaps reconsider. My superstar panel back with me now, former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Now, the cost of lockdown crisis is forcing businesses all over the country to take drastic action. And some vegan restaurants have even started serving meat to survive. So this is the Mango Tree in Somerset, which announced on social media that due to rising energy bills and costs, they're going to offer the Taunton community new and exciting options to dine in and take away. They also said that, quote, continuing as a purely vegan restaurant has not been sustainable for a considerable amount of time as not enough customers supported us. Now, look, I obviously think dropping the vegan agenda is a very good thing, regardless of skyrocketing prices, but it actually highlights the struggle that small businesses and pubs are going through at the moment. But in Liz, we now have to trust, and the London stock market clearly does too. Shares in Britain's pub and restaurant groups, retailers, airlines, banks and house builders rose sharply after she was confirmed as PM yesterday. That's because, of course, tomorrow, Truss is expected to announce a bold package to freeze bills, combat inflation and shield customers and small businesses from skyrocketing costs. She set out her ambitious plans during her first PMQs earlier. Watch.
I am against a windfall tax. I believe it is the wrong thing to be putting companies off investing in the United Kingdom just when we need to be growing the economy. I, as Prime Minister, will take immediate action to help people with the cost of their energy bills, and I will be making an announcement to this House on that tomorrow.
So could a potential £150 billion bailout be the answer to the cost of living crisis and save the great British pub? Look, Adam Brooks, I've got to come to you first. We've been speaking about this on the show for weeks. You have been campaigning for months. Obviously, you are a pub owner.
Yeah.
And you've been very clear that you and many other landlords are on the brink. So what do you need tomorrow from Liz Truss in order for your pubs to stay open?
Right, there needs to be an energy price cap for electric and gas. I mean, my electric doubled last November. You know, there was hardly any media attention. But
no one's talking about it.
No.
That's the thing. People forget, don't they? Businesses, the whole off-gem price cap does not apply to businesses.
So we need a very generous price cap for businesses. I mean, I think they're going to cap domestic at 28p. Now, people in my industry are being quoted £1.50 per kilowatt hour. That's up to 5 times what houses will have to pay. It's unviable. And, you know, I've got one thing to say to Liz Truss and the MPs, that if they do not act and price cap businesses, there are going to be millions of people suddenly unemployed this winter, and the benefit system and the social housing is going to collapse.
Absolutely, and I understand that, especially when it comes to small businesses. But Dawn, I think you rightly do have some concerns that this is just another case of kicking the can down the road and putting the burden on future generations, just like the furlough scheme, just like the COVID lockdown.
It is, obviously. We have just finished paying for the Second World War, haven't we? I mean, that has literally just finished. So it is kicking the can further down the road, but I think we have to do something now. We got into huge amounts of debt to get us through COVID, the whole furlough scheme, all the mysterious billions of pounds that went missing. But we got into a huge amount of debt then, and it's partly responsible for where we are now. But I think we have to save businesses.
Look, there's no way out. I mean, I've got 2 pubs. I know what the bills are going to go to. and they're higher than our rent.
Yeah, but I was talking, I mean, yours has gone up already, I mean, most of them are, but, I mean, I was talking to a lady, she ran a chain of care homes today, and there was a small chain line, and they're charity care homes. They're not for profit, they don't make any money whatsoever. Her electricity bill has gone from £90,000 to over £250,000.
No, it's...
She just cannot afford it.
And that
means more vulnerably older people on the street.
And that is why, even though I am so ideologically against another one of these massive state interventions, I do understand something has to be done. Actually, what's interesting, though, is lots of you on the left, including yourself, actually think even Keir Starmer isn't going far enough. You like the Gordon Brown plan of just renationalising the energy companies. And by the way, more and more people, it's not something that I agree with, of course, but more and more folk are agreeing with you.
Yeah, lots of Conservatives as well. Look, I think that talk of the second biggest ever handout after lockdown, it does deserve praise because, like, you know, I speak to Adam, I speak to lots of people who are owners of schools, hospitals. They will not survive, and it is terrifying. But my issue is, why will this have to affect taxpayers when energy profits are, 170 billion excess profits? Why can't it be a windfall tax so it comes from them? And that doesn't mean it has to be forever, but at least to get us...
Well, because Liz Truss was very clear on that today, though, because all a windfall tax does is actually repel business from this country.
But she has said that, but the CEO of BP has actually said that increased taxation is not going to stop investment. And I read something in the FT that echoed that. I think energy companies are almost expecting it.
She is an ideologue. And by the way,
but she has
lots of people would think I'm saying that in a negative way. I'm actually saying that in the most positive way. She is an ideologue. She believes in low taxes, so she is not going to implement more taxes, and I celebrate
I
that.
understand that, but she has a choice because, like we've said, we need this handout to see people through winter. So does she choose to tax us, the public, for the next however many years that we will be paying for it, or does she choose to take the money from excess
Well, look,
profit?
Dawn, obviously what she hopes is going to happen, and we don't know. We don't know. We may not know for a few years. But she hopes that all of her tax cuts are going to drive big economic growth and that will revive.
That is traditional, the Conservative way of getting out of the situation we are currently in. It's sort of what Margaret Thatcher did. Growth. I mean, that is, you grow your way out of a recession. You don't tax your way out of a recession. I mean, that's never notoriously worked, has it? So, I mean, and she's gone back to Conservative values. I mean, she's always channelled her inner Margaret Thatcher, so that's what she's doing here.
By the way, what a great thing, though, if these vegan restaurants actually start serving
They're
meat as
restaurants. Who cares what they serve? It doesn't matter. If you've got to survive, serve meals.
No, because, Dawn, here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. And I know this is not as serious a point, given what everyone's dealing with, but vegans and vegetarians, I know you're one of them, Dawn, and I accept that. And that's fine. When you go to a restaurant, you want to have a choice. Oh, sorry, Siri, go away.
Siri's getting
Laptop's getting involved in this one.
So basically, Dawn, you want to go in and have an option, right, when you go into a... So why can I not have an option when I have to be forced, when my friend or partner drags me to a revolting vegan or vegetarian restaurant, I want there to be a meat option?
I don't want to go to a restaurant that is going to satisfy both of you. They are available.
There's simply not enough customers that are vegans to make these...
because as we know, Dawn, I know you're very healthy, but vegans on the whole... And you're not a vegan, are you? You're a vegetarian.
No, I'm sort of, vegetarian.
But vegans, very unhealthy on the whole, because we know it's not good for your hips, it's not good for your skin, it's not good for your health.
I think good diet exists on both sides and bad diet exists on both sides as well.
Yeah, I'm hardly one to lecture.
How is your nutrition degree coming on,
after
by the
my
way?
KFC that I had tonight, Dawn hates
What a
having
surprise!
KFC. My God, it was good. Anyway, Maverick Florida Governor Ron DeSantis yesterday released a new campaign video, and he's shown why bold politicians like him who oppose regressive COVID restrictions and lockdowns should win big at the polls.
Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Ron DeSantis.
Today we deliver for the people of Florida yet again.
You saved our jobs.
And kept us going. They tried to shut us down, but you saved our business.
You led by facts, not fear.
And you let us decide.
You let me go to school.
You gave me a voice.
You put us first.
And didn't let them keep us apart.
You let us learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor.
Gracias, Gobernador DeSantis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis.
Honestly, one of the best campaign videos I've seen. Why can't we have more politicians like Ron? the rumoured Republican presidential nominee, definitely strengthening his case for the White House. Just don't mention that to Donald Trump. But from freedom-loving Florida to communist China now, as we catch a glimpse into the hell of zero COVID that many Western leaders actually despicably tried to inflict on us. The Chinese authorities have turned the megacity of Chengdu into a dystopia and forced the entire population of 21 million people to live under complete house arrest. And guess what? They're doing it via drone. What the hell are they doing? This is terrifying proof, as if we ever needed it, that restricting people's liberty in the name of a virus was a scandalous dereliction of duty by our politicians, and it must never be repeated, because that's where you'd end up. And by the way, if Devi Schroeder and Nicola Sturgeon had been in charge, or Jeremy Hunt had been in charge of the Conservative Party, that is where we would have ended up. Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Dawn Neeson, thank you so much. Do stand by, though, because coming up is the race baiter-in-chief, Dr. Shola brands Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman, quote, gatekeepers of white supremacists. Are the left obsessed with stoking hatred? And is it fat-shaming to say that Therese Coffey is too unhealthy to be health secretary? I'll debate that with my superstar panel as the Media Buzz continues. But next, remember the Salem witch trials? Well, innocent members of the public were hanged over false charges of witchcraft. And that comedian Andrew Doyle says today's high priests of cancel culture are the new modern-day witch hunters. He's going to join me live to discuss his brilliant new book, The New Puritans, straight after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, the Salem witch trials were 300 years ago, but my next guest believes the grim events of 17th century Massachusetts are more relevant today than ever before. Star comedian Andrew Doyle, the brains behind parody social justice warrior Titania McGrath, and the star of GB News, of course you know that, says we're living through times when unproven accusations of transphobia, fascism and any other ism you can think of are once again enough to leave innocent people damned. Instead of hanging members of the public over false charges that are witches, today the high priests of cancel culture are the ones readying the nooses.
In his brilliant new book, The New Puritans, How the Religion of Social Justice Captured the Western World, Andrew dives deeper into modern-day culture wars and appeals for the return of a liberal society. He writes, and today, just like in Salem, those who attempt to apply reason and logic, who dare to stand up for the accused, make themselves vulnerable by doing so. Andrew, it is absolutely crazy to think that we're back here.
Yeah.
But there is a real desire, isn't there, to cancel, to silence, to ruin careers, to defund.
Yeah.
And it's out of control.
Well, there's that bloodlust, isn't there? And there are all of these people who believe that they're on the side of the angels, but they are happy to demonise, effectively bully, harass people, destroy their livelihoods, their reputations, all of this stuff. And the reason I wanted to compare it to what happened in Salem with the witch trials is because there was a moment, it was only a year, but it was utter hysteria. But a lot of people in authority knew that it wasn't real, and they were going along with it to save their own skins. Because, as you know, in Salem, there were these girls saying there are witches everywhere, and they can identify the witches, and those people were hanged. And if you stood up and said, there are no witches, they'd point at you and say, you're a witch as well. And you can see the similar things today. I mean, if you ask a politician, what is a woman? You can see the fear in their eyes, because they know what the truth is, but they can't articulate that truth. Because if they do so, then they will be attacked by these swarming online mobs, and they don't want that to happen to them. So really what I'm saying is the tensions that we're experiencing at the moment in society are largely down to intimidation, and it's a kind of hysteria. And I think it's a good way to understand it, to compare it to this moment of hysteria from history, which also gives us some clues of how we can escape it.
Well, indeed, because actually sometimes it's not even what you say, sometimes it's what you don't say. I mean, you tell a really fascinating story about how you're a friend of an actor who was actually threatened by their agent if they didn't post supporting the BLM movement. Now, that was in the hysteria after the killing of George Floyd. Now, we've now discovered there are so many good reasons why folk, including me, by the way, refused to back the BLM movement, even in the midst of that hysteria, because we knew the BLM movement was an anti-capitalist, anti-family, anti-police, communist organisation, essentially. But lots of actors actually realise we're not going to get work unless we back this.
It's coercive. So, you know, for instance, let's take the pronoun issue. A lot of people, civil servants included, people at the BBC, the NHS, are being encouraged to sign off emails with their pronouns or to announce them at the start of meetings. Now, no one's saying you'll be fired if you don't do that. But if you don't do that, you're not going to be up for promotion next time. And people know this. People have this sense. I mean, with the friend I mentioned in my book about, it's an actor, her agent said to her, you're not going to get cast if you don't put a black square in support of Black Lives Matter on your Twitter where it can be seen. And this is very similar to religious observances, right? Back in Salem, one of the reasons why some people were prosecuted is because their church attendance wasn't good enough. They didn't know their commandments, things like that. So we're expected to, and this is why what I really wanted to try and do in this book is to help people to understand it in terms of a religion. Because if it's a religion, it makes sense. You know, that there are edicts, there are laws, heretics are punished, there's blasphemy laws, you have to follow a very strict code, and that sort of helps to make sense of it, I think.
Indeed. Can we also talk about it, though, Andrew, on the political spectrum, right? Because a lot of people will be surprised, given you work at GB News, but actually, you're a pretty traditionally left-wing guy, right? You're certainly not someone who's considered a right-wing guy politically. But actually, it's this movement which has really redefined left and right for a lot of people, because in the past, it used to be the right that was connected with extreme censorship and a puritanical nature. I mean, you think of Mary Whitehouse and people like that. But it's now the left that wants to censor.
Yeah, isn't that funny? And it's interesting you mentioned Mary Whitehouse, because her whole philosophy with her Clean Up TV campaign and that kind of thing was that if the masses get to watch popular entertainment that has a corrupting influence, they'll change and they'll become depraved. But that's the reason why, say, Jerry Sadowitz is, the comedian whose show was cancelled last week. That's why comedy shows are getting cancelled, because they also believe, these activists from the left also believe that the public can't be trusted to hear jokes or words or images that might corrupt them. And it's, in other words, it's not a left-right thing. This is an aspect of human nature that recurs throughout history, and it's called authoritarianism. And sometimes it comes from the left, sometimes it comes from the right. The point that I'm making in my book is that at the moment, it seems to be predominantly coming from those who identify as left-wing, although, as I also argue, they don't seem to care particularly about the working classes or redressing economic inequality. They care about the holy trinity of race, gender and sexuality, and that's their new creed, you know?
Because we've seen it with trans ideology too.
Hugely.
And it's trans extremism, isn't it? Because again, this is something that I feel is so important to say. You know, I absolutely support the rights of trans people to live as trans people and to live a happy, healthy life.
Yeah.
But the trans extremism wants you to deny biology. And if you're not prepared to deny biology, like J.K. Rowling, for example, if you stand up for the rights of biological women, you're hunted down.
Well, look what they do. They call you a witch in a new way. They call you a TERF, a trans-exclusionary radical feminist. They call
like the
you
modern-day witch.
Modern-day witch. They call you transphobe. They call you hateful. J.K. Rowling has been described as hateful and transphobic, but has never said anything hateful or transphobic. And whenever
Not even close.
No, nowhere near. Quite the opposite. And whenever someone asks her, and whenever someone says, "Well, where's your quotation? Where has she said this?" They don't tell you because they can't find it. For them, it's their lived experience, their belief, their faith that this person is a witch. How is that different from the witch hunters of Salem who could point at someone and say, "We know you're a witch, and we don't have to prove it because the accusation is the proof"?
No, it's so shocking. And that's why this book is so important. I love your writing.
Thank you.
I loved free speech. But this is even better. The new Puritans, is it available now? Is it out now?
Well, it's out tomorrow.
Out tomorrow?
So it is.
This is well timed.
Yeah.
New Puritans. I've had my copy for about 2 weeks now, haven't I? And it's an absolutely brilliant book, Andrew. So thank you so much for coming back and with us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, you'll be back here Sunday night, won't
That's
you,
right.
for Free Speech Nation. That is top comedian, author and GBNews star Andrew Doyle. But coming up, Rod Liddell unveils his radical 10-point plan for Liz, including taking a scalpel to the NHS and waging a war on woke. But will you get behind Rod's revolution? Find out the rest of his dramatic policy proposals in Uncancelled at 10:40. But next in the Media Buzz, as unhinged race-baited Dr. Scholler brands the most diverse cabinet in history, quote, gatekeepers of white supremacists. Are the left using hatred and division to try and make Truss fall at any cost? And also, what do you think about this? See a picture of her there? Lots of social media commentators say wrong to fat shame Therese Coffey by saying she's actually too unhealthy to be health secretary. Well, my superstar panel will get stuck into all of that straight after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. I'm just going to say sorry to the the vegans and the vegetarians that I've offended yet again. But your life will be better, I promise you. A bit of KFC, a bit of meat, I promise you that.
There are other chicken brands.
There are no other chicken brands in my world. More on tomorrow's news tonight now on our Media Buzz. Dawn's disgusted with me. OK, straight to the front pages. Now, Here They Come is the headline of The Express, leading with Prince William and Kate doing the school run with their children, Princes George, Louis and Charlotte. Elsewhere, the paper writes on Truss's policy, claiming that she is a woman of action. The Daily Mail also carries that Cambridge family photo while reporting on Truss's energy revolution, including a dash for North Sea gas and a massive move to end the ban on fracking, and that should have been done years ago. The Daily Telegraph writes, Truss vows never again on energy bills, pledging to revolutionise supply and reduce bills by ending the ban on fracking. The Eye describes Liz Truss's energy plan as a gamble, while also reporting on the pound's historic slump earlier today. The Guardian leads on the plan too, writing Truss banks on energy bill freeze in a bid to unite the party. The Daily Star claims Jesus was playing cricket long before it was thought to have been invented. Apparently scientists reckon the Son of God was, quote, hitting sixes 1,900 years ago. Yep, totally normal front page there, Dawn, from your newspaper. And the Sun, also have that gorgeous photo of the Royals' first day of term as George, Louis and Charlotte all attend Ladbroke School in Buckshire. Look, Dawn, you should be proud, Dawn Neeson of the Daily Star, because that is a newspaper that gives us a smile every night. And you know what? At the moment, that is what we need.
It's what it's put on earth to do. Just give you a bit of a giggle.
I know, and you were there doing that for many, many years, of course. The businessman and activist Adam Brooks here with me too, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Now, of course, the most diverse cabinet in British history was always going to raise the ire of the hypocritical left, and boy, are they seething today. New PM Liz Truss selected her inner circle yesterday and made close ally Therese Coffey, her deputy and Health Secretary. And like mean little moths to a flame, the Be Kind Brigade piled on, mercilessly lambasting her for her personal appearance and even her weight. Today, when asked about the comments that she's too unhealthy to be in the role, the new Health Secretary brushed off the jibes.
Well, my focus is on how we deliver for patients, and I appreciate I may not be the role model, but I'm sure that the Chief Medical Officer and others... Chief Medical Officer and others, I'm sure, will continue to be role models in that regard, and I will do my best as well.
But should someone who enjoys a smoke and a drink be the boss of the health service? I know I'd never get it.
Well, I'm the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, and that's what I'll be focused on delivering. I appreciate I'll probably get all sorts of comments.
Oh, poor Therese. Far more disturbing is the out-and-out racism, though, from the revolting race baiters on the left, like Dr. Scholler, who claims the diverse cabinet containing not a single white man in any of the great offices is actually full of people supporting white supremacism. Yep. Just follow me here. So this is what she tweeted. Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman are, by their words and actions, representation of the anti-woke. I expect nothing but divisive rhetoric, gaslighting and sabotage from these racial gatekeeping upholders of white supremacy. So, Adam Brooks, I'm sorry, to me, this is a bridge too far.
It's disgusting.
It is. It's absolutely disgusting. And it's out-and-out racist.
She talks about dangerous rhetoric or divisive rhetoric. That is just that. Yeah. And, you know, I mentioned to Dawn out the back, I really feel that using white supremacist language like that and dangerous rhetoric is putting MPs in danger. I think, you know, we've seen MPs lose their life from violence. It's comments like that that put them in even further danger and whip up hysteria, which isn't, you know, it shouldn't be there.
Actually, it's also just factually wrong. I mean, how on earth can a total mad woman like Dr. Scholler actually look at a cabinet which is more diverse than any other cabinet in British history, where literally the three great roles of state, you know, the Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary and the Chancellor, are filled by ethnically diverse people. By the way, I don't think they're there because of their race for a single second or their ethnic diversity. I think they're there because they're going to be damn good at their jobs. But how on earth can she look at that and actually say white supremacy? It's just sick.
Look, I don't really agree with her rhetoric. And by the way, I think what's brilliant about this cabinet is they always say that you have to see yourself in a role to believe that you can be it. So I hope that there are women, ethnic minorities who look at this cabinet, regardless of their policies, and think, wow, if they can do it, I can do it. And I think that's commendable. I think where people have concerns is that none of these people have spoken up for, or through voting records, have been champions of racial equality or female equality. And obviously this is a white panel, so I can't speak about race, but what I can speak about is the things I care about.
Why can't you?
Because it doesn't impact me. And I think the issue with diversity...
But I hate this.
Hang on, it's not about box ticking. It's about ensuring that people... I love this country, and I think we all need to be represented.
Yeah, but we all also have to be able to speak about what we believe.
Speak, but what I'm
no matter
saying
what our
is
race is, no matter what our sexuality is.
Lots of policies happen when people are underrepresented. So, for example, as a woman and as a mother, the 4 people who are going to have the biggest impact in this current cabinet are the Equalities Minister. And by the way, for a party and a leader who kept going on about knowing what a woman is, she's taken away the role of Minister of Women, which is terrifying. Jacob Rees-Mogg is the new Business Minister, the man who condemns flexible working and working from home as laziness.
How terrible. How terrible that there's a straight white man in the cabinet. I mean, who would have thought it?
Despite the fact that 54,000 women are having to leave their jobs every single year because of the cost of childcare.
Dawn, the issue that I have, and by the way, I have this a lot personally because, you know, as a gay man, I don't fit the box of what the left in this country expect gay people to be like. Well, now we're not even allowed to say gay, are we? It's LGBTQI++++++++++. And of course I do. I say it. Of course I say it. But I'm not meant to. And what I feel, Dawn, is that the left in this country will only accept diversity, especially ethnic diversity, when it is representing the left. And actually, we have to move to a place where diversity is accepted, no matter what your politics.
I think you've pretty much nailed it there. I mean, look, you were saying that, you know, everyone has a right to speak their opinion. And I think Shola, who I work with regularly and I respect her, that's her opinion. She's entitled to her opinion. I'm not going to sink to the level of slinging insults here. However, I do think that the people on the left have a problem with anyone who's black or brown not subscribing to that woke victimhood playbook that the left think all black and brown people should.
Indeed. And what
which I think is incredibly patronising, by the way.
It's so patronising. Of course it is. What about this fat shaming of Therese Coffey? Does anyone think that's been acceptable today?
I think it's absolutely outrageous, and I think there's actually a lot of misogyny in there, because if you look at previous health ministers, Matt Hancock, I can't remember.
He's quite slim, though.
No, but he talked about openly liking smoking. No one ever talked about his health. And yet again, we are boiling down a female MP to her appearance rather than what she is actually doing. I think there's lots to criticise her for.
Although, Adam, you think it could be hypocritical, though, with smoking?
I don't agree with putting the pictures up and, you know, it's almost like online bullying. But I do think there's government campaigns to lose weight for your health. There's government campaigns to stop smoking. I feel that she maybe should come out and say, you know what, I don't look like a picture of health, but do you know what, we expect you to try and get more healthy, so I'm going to do the same. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to be more healthy. That would be a good move from me. But
why did no one criticise Matt Hancock when he openly showed that himself smoking?
Well, Dawn, for me, what the issue is actually is that if you go down this path, it's a really slippery slope. Because very soon, what you'll start saying is the Education Secretary has to have been a teacher, the Defence Secretary has to have been in the Army, the Equalities Minister has to have one arm. You know, where does it end?
People can only do the jobs that they are as pure as the driven snow for. I mean, that is ridiculous, because I mean, most of us wouldn't be doing the jobs we're doing currently in that situation.
Yeah.
I think it's very unfair that she's been criticised.
It's identity politics.
Ken Clarke wasn't, you know, didn't have any of this. But I do actually think it's quite good that we have a health minister who looks like she might be needing the NHS rather soon.
But let's just also, they tax us for fast food. They tax people that smoke. Now the head of the health department should really come out and say,
I
you
don't
know,
think that's going to happen in this government, though, because Liz Truss is, of course, someone who doesn't believe in all of that nanny state stuff.
And
now, if you're like
public
me, this next video will make your blood boil. The eco-terrorists of Animal Rebellion today sprayed white paint to symbolise milk all over the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben, and yet another criminal attempt to get attention for their ridiculous plant-based agenda. Look. So what are the police doing about this? We are being made to look like a joke. The reason these crims pull these publicity stunts is because they know they will get away with it and there will be virtually no punishment for their dangerous actions. I hope the new Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, gets tough on this madness. Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Dawn Neeson, do stand by, because coming up we're going to have the crowning moment of the show as we reveal tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackass. But first, are you ready for Rod's Revolution? Columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddle has a bombshell plan for Liz Truss to galvanise the nation, including nationalising utility companies and taking a large scalpel to the NHS. He's going to be uncancelled and unveiling his dramatic policies next. First, though, quick look at tomorrow's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, as Liz Truss gets to work transforming Britain into an aspiration nation, former Tory Minister Anne Widdecombe joins me live to set out how she can succeed as PM. In the clash, ex-copper Norman Brennan takes on vegan extremist Animal Rebellion as we ask if it's time police got tough on eco-terrorism groups trying to destroy our way of life. Plus, Calvin Mackenzie and Voice of the People Charlie Lawson take no prisoners as they deliver their sharp take on the stories that matter to you. And I'll break down the day's headlines with my superstar panel, Conservative commentator Dominique Samuels, former Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and journalist Amy Nicole. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday, from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, Liz Truss set out an ambitious plan for her aspiration nation, vowing to cut taxes and grow the economy, tackle the energy crisis and fix our NHS. But Rod Liddle has an even more radical plan that he thinks the new PM needs to implement to save the country, and it won't please everyone. Now, Rod, it's not going to please me, actually, because I believe your plan includes renationalising utilities.
It does indeed, yeah. It's a very popular policy with the electorate. Massive support for renationalising the energy companies and indeed the railways. And what it would do rather wonderfully is it would enable us to figure our way out of this energy crisis, to cap people's bills without taking a windfall tax and therefore depleting the resources of those financial companies. And it would also outflank Labour on the left, which would be a wonderful thing to see. Almost as wonderful as watching Therese Coffey, who made the Deputy Prime Minister. Incidentally, Dan, she is my new heroine. I'm getting a poster of her on my wall, smoking a cigar and with champagne spilled down her blouse. She is fabulous. And if you've seen, Dan, I'm sure you have, mate, the odium and loathing being poured on her via Twitter, she is fantastic. I think I'm a little bit in love. Anyway, I'm going to move on.
She's your type. I was going to say, she's your type of woman, Rod. And actually, speaking about the NHS, you think there's got to be tax breaks for private health insurance?
I do indeed think that. I think what we need to do is to reimagine the health service a bit as it was imagined in the day, which was that as a basic facility for people to be cured of ills, rather than what it has become today, which is something which we have far too much expectation of. So I think it needs to be stripped back to basics, and I suspect as well that for those people who are off enough to pay for it, should have medical insurance and should remove themselves from being a burden on the NHS. Because whatever happens with the NHS, and Therese could be the person to do this, whatever happens, simply pouring more money down its throat will never, ever be enough. It needs radical surgery. It is not working. There are more people employed by the NHS today than has ever been the case, and it is still never, ever enough. Every winter, COVID or without COVID, they tell us they're in crisis. It is a rotting albatross hanging around our neck, and it needs real work.
Rod,
So,
you think
NHS sort it
woke
out.
as well? You think woke, there's got to be an actual genuine war on woke?
I think the first two things I think that she must do is nationalise the utilities, and the second is war on woke. And I think both of those are extremely popular vote-winning moves. What we need to do is to get rid of Stonewall from all its institutions, all government institutions, all schools, everywhere else. Get rid of it. I think we can also draw a line under positive discrimination and diversity awareness classes, diversity targets, and so on. You look at that government, you look at that front bench. There is no problem in this country with diversity. There is no structural racism. The Conservative Party is a perfect example of that. And I think they can use that as a springboard to say, we will move forward together, black, white, brown, whatever colour you are, whatever creed you are, we are as one. Let's look for the things which unite us rather than the things which divide us. No more these silos of victimhood, of complaint, moaning about imaginary crimes.
Rod, Truss obviously has a massive battle on her hands with the unions and the leaders like Mick Lynch, but you say actually she's going to have to stare them down and be very, very tough when it comes to public sector wages. Oh no, have we lost Rod? Oh no, he's gone. He's gone altogether. But he had so many good things in this plan. I think we might just get him back. So let me just run you through some of the other things that Rod wants to do. As I said, he wants to be tough on public sector wage demands. He wants to roll out a house building and home insulation programme. I think we've got you back, Rod, is that right? Just talking about public sector pay.
It's sounding dreadful. We've just had lightning. I think that's what it is.
OK, no, we've got you now, Rod. So public sector pay and home building.
I'm really sorry, Dan. We've got lightning strikes here, and I don't think you're hearing me very well. But yes, restrict public sector pay. We want home building and home insulation. That's one thing those morons are right about. We do need to insulate our homes, and we need a bill for animal welfare. It's another vote winner. And by God, this government needs vote winners. It has got an awful lot of ground to make up on the Labour Party. And all of the things I've suggested are populist. They're both from the left and they're from the right. And those are the things which could enable a Conservative Party to win the next election and get us out of this hellish mess of inflation and spiralling costs. And the final thing, of course, is that she must stand by Ukraine and step up our support for Ukraine in the war against Russia.
Rod Little with his plan for Liz Truss. Rod, I hope she's listening. Thank you so much, Rod. We'll speak next week. But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. My superstar panel return to reveal their nominations. So, Dawn Neeson, who are you backing to be greatest Britain?
Going to go for Liz Truss. Not her biggest fan originally, but I thought she did well today, her first PMQs. And I think she's hit the ground running, and that's all we can ask for at the moment.
Adam Brooks, your nominee.
I'm going to try and pronounce his name right. It's Pascal Soria, the head of AstraZeneca. And he's been calling out the blanket use of boosters in healthy populations. He called it a waste of money. And at the moment, we need all the billions we can get.
So the idea being, let's just completely end this madness of trying to vaccinate everyone for a virus that most of us have had multiple times. Sounds sensible to me. Ashley James, your Greatest Britain nominee?
Well, I feel like I'm not going to win this one as usual, but it's actually Keir Starmer.
Why?
I really enjoyed both of them at the PMQs today, and I'm excited to watch more, but I thought Keir did a brilliant job as the opposition, asking lots of good questions and holding Liz to account.
OK, well, let's have a look to prove why you're wrong.
There's nothing new about a Tory Prime Minister who, when asked who pays, says it's you, the working people of Britain.
Well, there's nothing new about a Labour leader who is calling for more tax rises.
I mean, Ashley, you know I love you, but I do worry that you're a little bit blinkered if you thought that Keir Starmer's performance today was enough to make him the greatest Briton.
Look, you showed that one clip. He was actually very good throughout. But I'll give Liz Truss credit where credit is due, and I thought she did very well.
OK, but look, I'm actually going to go for neither of them and go with Adam Brooks's nominee, Pascal. Sorry, because I think what's critical, and this is what people forget, Adam, in this whole debate, AstraZeneca, not for profit when it comes to the vaccine, because obviously they did the tie-up with the university and the British government. So I wonder why the big pharma companies, the Moderna, the Pfizer, believe that we should all get jabbed every few months. Just putting that out there. Maybe there's another motivation for them. Dawn Neeson, your Union Jackass nominee.
I'm going to go for the Milk Muppets, the vegan activists who are currently targeting milk depots and stopping the supply chain, getting to people who actually need this now, putting the prices up, cost of living going up. So I'm going to nominate all of that lot, and I think they should. They're giving vegetarians and vegans a very bad name.
Let's have a look at the Milk Muppets in action. And a programming note, myself and Norman Brennan will be going head-to-head with the Milk Muppets, as Dawn calls them, in tomorrow night's clash. So make sure you're back for that. Adam Brooks, your Union Jackass.
Mine is Nicola Sturgeon. She's pushing through a tourism tax, which is going to hurt, hotels, hospitality, and hit people's pockets yet again. These businesses do not need, extra costs at such a tough time. I think it's irresponsible and unforgivable.
I mean, what Sturgeon is actually trying to do is bring socialism to Scotland. We saw that in the rent controls that she introduced yesterday as well. And I think it's really disturbing that not many folk are actually looking at what she's doing in Scotland. Obviously, I understand it's been a huge political week with the new Prime Minister of the UK, but Sturgeon is taking Scotland down a dire path, and it needs to be called out, and we will continue to do it on this show. Ashley James, your Union Jackass nominee.
It's quite hard for me to pick just one, and actually he didn't put himself in the position, but I've decided that my Union Jackass is Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Oh, is that because he's a straight white man?
No, it isn't because he's a straight white man. It's because I'm genuinely worried what it means for families having a business minister who's so against flexible working, not to mention the fact that he is the man in charge of energy and climate.
Because you know what? Work from home is a joke for society.
There's 72% of companies who allow flexible working showed that they had increased productivity. There is so much research and brilliant campaigners like Pregnant Then Screwed.
Oh, yeah. But to hell with society, by the way. To hell with the poor students or people who've just graduated from university who are locked up in pokey little flats and can never go and learn from people at work. You've got to understand, actually, there are lots of ramifications from a work-from-home culture. We'll never socialise. Adam's business will be destroyed altogether because we'll never leave our weird little houses. So anyway, it's not going to be him, it's going to be the Milk Muppets, as Dawn Neeson said. Today's Union Jackass, and they'll be with me tomorrow night. My goodness, I am looking forward to that. Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks, Ashley James, what a fabulous superstar panel. I'm back again tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Headliners is next. Good night.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest forecast from the Met Office. Over the next few days we'll see a mixture of sunny spells, scattered heavy and thundery showers, and particularly warm overnight as well. The reason for the unsettled weather at the moment is this area of low pressure. It has been with us most of the week and it isn't going anywhere quickly, remaining unsettled for many of us. And if we take a look at the details for the rest of Wednesday, we can see frequent showers blowing in across the south and the west, closest to the centre of that low pressure system. Overnight though, showers for most areas, perhaps some drier interludes across northern England, southern Scotland, but overall a warm night to come. Temperatures double figures for many, 12 to 15 Celsius. So a muggy start to Thursday morning. Some really heavy showers developing through the central belt of Scotland first thing. A Met Office warning in force here. Elsewhere, a mixture of sunny spells and scattered heavy showers as we go through the day. Some rumbles of thunder, hail in there, some disruption to travel is expected. And then temperature-wise, generally warm for the early part of September, low 20s for many, 22 to 23 Celsius across the southeast of England. Through Thursday afternoon and into the evening time, we're just going to have to watch this area of heavy rain moving in off the North Sea, affecting parts of northern England, southern Scotland. This pushing its way westwards overnight. Elsewhere during the early hours into Friday morning, we'll see a mixture of clear spells and still the risk of some scattered showers. Generally warm night again, temperatures 13 to 15 Celsius in the towns and cities, perhaps dipping into single figures in the countryside. So we've got this area of cloud and outbreaks of rain swirling around the northwest of the UK through Friday. It should start to ease later on in the day, but still the risk across eastern Scotland, some heavy downpours here. Elsewhere, another day of sunny spells and scattered showers, some of these heavy and thundery. Perhaps drier as we head into the weekend initially before further rain arrives later, and overall temperatures still reaching the low 20s.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio, and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Hello, the top stories on GB News tonight. The Prime Minister is set to announce what she's describing as a bold plan to protect households and businesses against the rising cost of living. Liz Truss is expected to tell MPs tomorrow that domestic bills will be frozen at around £2,500 annually. So far, Ms Truss has rejected the idea of using a windfall tax on oil and gas company profits to cover the cost. Labour has accused the Prime Minister of writing a blank cheque to the energy giants by ruling out the levy and leaving the British people to foot the bill. Her Majesty the Queen has postponed a meeting of the Privy Council after being advised by her doctors to rest. Buckingham Palace says the latest advice does not involve a hospital stay, and the meeting, which was supposed to take place tonight, will be rescheduled. Her Majesty remains at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where she was pictured yesterday inviting Liz Truss to become Prime Minister. And pictures have been released showing Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis on their first day back at school. The siblings were accompanied by their parents, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, for a settling-in session at Lambeth Private School near Ascot. The children can be seen in their summer uniforms, short-sleeve shirts and shorts for the boys and a gingham dress for Charlotte. All three said they were excited about the year ahead. Here in London, 10 animal rights protesters have been arrested after vandalising Parliament with white paint. The group, calling themselves Animal Rebellion, want Liz Truss to take action on dairy farming, which the group says is worsening climate change. Some of the activists also glued themselves to the pavement outside the Palace of Westminster shortly before Prime Minister's questions. Royal Mail workers have voted to stage a further 48-hour strike at the end of September. The walkout follows other planned industrial action scheduled to take place tomorrow. 115,000 members of the Communication Workers Union plan to walk out over an offer of a 2% pay rise. The union warns there could be more action if the deadlock isn't broken. And President Biden has hosted a ceremony unveiling portraits of the former President Barack Obama and the First Lady Michelle Obama. The paintings will be hung in the White House following a long-held tradition. Usually, a former president returns for the unveiling during his successor's tenure, but there was no ceremony held for the Obamas while President Trump was in office. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You with GB News, where now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. Guess who's back? Back again. Dixon's back. Tell a friend. Yes, I'm Nick Dixon. I'm in the big boy seat again